Over 20 suburbs without power and services, with more rain forecast. Across the coast caused flooding and damage. A 300-year-old tree succumbs to the storms. Locals take a moment to celebrate Valentine's Day.
Hang up the boots. You're a dead
Hey, Benny.
Do anything next time.
Hey, but it's all right. Pelicans are happy.
The bloody birds up there laying their eggs. They've got fences.
That footage is of wild scenes erupting in the public gallery at the start of the first council meeting for 2020. Local residents from the Tuggerah Lake area vented their anger at council's inaction to clear the channel at the entrance, something they argue was the chief cause of unprecedented flooding and damage to local homes and other property this week. Councillors were visibly stunned by the wild interjections before turning to the business of the day.
Ladies and gentlemen, I heard one of our councillors, Councillor Best, on with Ray Hadley today, and at the end of it, Ray Hadley said, "Well, Mr. Best, you're one of the good blokes in a sea of dolps." Well, at the time I thought to myself, I wonder what a dolp is, but tonight I know what a bloody dolp is.
I don't know why I'm getting booed. I haven't said anything yet, but thanks anyway. Look, Madam Mayor, I rise to support the amendment, and it's time for some honesty in this chamber rather than the evangelical charlatan approach you've just seen from the former Speaker.
The problem is council is polarised, and if you try to find common ground, you get cut off at the knees. Councillors, wake up to the fact that we're trying to get an outcome for the community. I've never in 30 years seen a council that refuses to try and find some common ground. You're either black or you're white, and bugger everything in between.
Mayor Lisa Matthews may have been anticipating the hostile reception waiting for her when she released a selfie video on her way to the council meeting.
Hi everybody, I guess people are kind of wondering if I'm going to end up at the meeting, because a lot of people may or may not know, probably really don't give a shit really, but am I going to turn up to the meeting? Well, yes I am. I'm wading through water because my property is underwater. I have been affected by this flood. So for those of you who think you know me, or for those of you that think that I don't care, well, you are wrong. I am wading through water to get to that meeting, and I will be there, and I will listen to what the community has to say, but I am one of those affected. So I'm not sitting in any ivory tower.
The state government on Wednesday declared a state of natural disaster for the Central Coast in response to the flooding. Parliamentary Secretary for the Coast and Member for Terrigal Adam Crouch said some 38,000 people were still without power and other services. The declaration means assistance is available for people affected by the flooding and for the council clean-up. Minister for Police and Emergency Services David Elliott said the assistance will be provided through jointly funded Commonwealth State Disaster Recovery Funding arrangements. Let's go now to David Abrahams.
Adam, what does it mean to declare a natural disaster zone?
Yeah, look, thanks, David. Great to be with you. Look, declaring a state of natural disaster means that, firstly, people on low incomes or without insurance are entitled to emergency assistance. In addition to that, it also means that council can get funding from the state government to organise to clean up public assets, and that is so important given the scale of the flooding and what we've seen around the Central Coast.
Well, Georgia, the Central Coast has now received over 300 millimetres of rain. That's more than 12 inches of rain in the last 9 days. The rain has fallen right across the Central Coast, including the major water catchment areas up by the dam, levels rising over 2%, up to 54.6%. The footage we now is taken from Summersby Falls earlier in the week. But as you say, Georgia, the falls have been brought widespread flooding and destruction around the coast. The worst flooding has been the northern parts of the coast, most notably around Tuggerah Lakes. These aerial photos of the entrance come courtesy of Central Coast Aero Club. And this photo was taken in McLean Street, Killarney Vale on Wednesday, and shows an almost completely submerged car in the floodwaters. The flooding has stretched to areas emergency services now have had over 1,400 call-outs since the weekend. The coast's infrastructure has been battered. Over 20 suburbs have suffered power outages, with an estimated 10,000 homes still without power. Internet access was also disrupted, with the NBN Co resorting to some pretty odd old world technology to keep the internet functioning here at Greenpoint. The trains also are in disarray from Sunday night, and commuters stranded at Woy Woy and Gosford and all the stations up there, with buses down to Sydney. And Georgia, there's no rest for the Coast Fireys. After 2 months of fighting catastrophic fires, many of the volunteers were out again this past week, including helping the SES with pumping and cutting down fallen trees. Back to you.
And the coast looks set to receive more rain this weekend as tropical cyclone Yuzi tracks eastward towards the northern New South Wales coast after battering Lord Howe Island last night with winds of over 140 kilometres per hour. One victim of the storms this week was a 300-year-old Angophora at McMaster's Beach.
Yeah, well, we sit in realms of, let's say, reincarnation for Indigenous people, and these old trees, and especially those Angophora, they're the more female spirit trees, and to see that old tree fall down was just about broke my heart when I drove past the other day. So they're very special to Aboriginal people, and they're very special to humans, and definitely to residents of the in and around that Woodeye National Park area on the Central Coast. It's been speculated that the tree is over 300 years old, and that would put it pre-settlement. How do you reflect on that? Well, just imagine the stories she could tell. Imagine the wealth of knowledge she'd be able to enlighten us on. Definitely here before Cook came up the coast, that's for sure. She sits in a place there above McMaster's Beach there, which some of my followers over time indirectly would say she's like the gateway into Woodeye National Park. And when it fell down the other day, I reflected on that, and again made me very sad that old marker, she's fallen down. But when you look at age, Dave, it could be, that's in this time, this realm, this spirit, and she's been reincarnated many times. She's been here possibly many times before. So how old is that? That's thousands of years old.
Well, just about all sport was cancelled due to torrential rain last weekend, but on the other side of the world, in very different conditions, Somersby's Abby Wilcox was flying high. Wilcox mesmerised spectators with her bronze medal-winning jump in the women's aerial at the FIS Freestyle Ski World Cup event in Utah's Deer Valley. That was Wilcox's first medal in World Cup skiing, and she is now hoping to make her Olympic debut at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games. Here at home, East Gosford's Lachlan Shelley has been selected in a development squad for the Junior Wallabies. The former Gosford Rugby Junior has played the last 2 seasons with the Eastwood Colts in Sydney and will now undertake some intensive training ahead of the Oceania Cup in coming months. A final squad of 30 players will then be selected to play in the Junior Rugby World Cup in Italy in July. If he makes it to Italy, a tough start awaits Shelley and his teammates, with Australia being drawn in the same pool as New Zealand, Wales and Georgia. Well, not all news of rain and flooding this week was bad. The beaches may have been closed, but that didn't stop these kids from Wagstaff capitalising on a rare opportunity to use their boogie boards in their own backyard. In breaking news, Central Coast Council has announced that they've been successful in receiving $600,000 in state funding for dredging of the entrance channel. Council has committed to matching funding dollar for dollar. And we close this week with a little ode to love as romantics are filling restaurants across the Central Coast for Valentine's Day. That's this week's 5 at 5. Have a wonderful and loving weekend.
It's 4 in the afternoon. I'm quite home awaiting you. Fall in love with me, baby. Fall in love.
Because it's Valentine's Day, and over Valentine, I'd like to spoil a little bit.
I'm waiting for my husband to buy me something.